Okay, sometimes when I go over 15 minutes on these videos, YouTube will time out on me. So um, I used to have a higher capacity, and then Google changed its rules. I use Gmail. I sometimes use Google Docs, and of course, since Google has YouTube and just about everything else, I saw that they bought Tumblr, I think, this week. They want to make it an all Google world, but of course, Bing and all the others are competing, as well. I wanted to refer you to what we're going to be doing in the first few weeks of class. By the end of the day on Friday, May 24th, send me an information sheet on yourself. And believe me, I'm not going to call you or email you at your personal email address. The only reason I would ever call you or email you is if I haven't heard from you for 2 or 3 weeks, and I haven't gotten any work, then I will email you at your secondary, your personal email address, and see if you respond and see what's going on. Because I definitely don't want to lose students in the class. If necessary, I will text you, and then at the last resort, I would call you if needed. But that's not something that I would do. But I like to have background information on students and so on, and I often look at those and just to find out who people are in the class and what types of majors and so on. There are some majors that people have in class that I didn't even know existed. So some like textile. Somebody went last year to Drexel and they had like textile engineering. I didn't realize that. I had somebody in concrete engineering, and I guess I knew that that was a major. But there was like somebody last year, food science, nutrition, but some branch of it, and they were an intern for Giant Eagle, and I did not know of that particular major. But anyhow, and then assignment one is due on Friday. When you do that assignment, make sure to, first of all, introduce the people to whom you spoke. If you spoke to 2 people or 3 people, give the first and last name of the people that you spoke to of each person, how long you've known them, in what capacity, and then do that with the other person or persons, and then give an overall overview of what they had to say. That's actually very important because it just sets up the direction for your writing. Now, in the body, you want to use at least 2 paragraphs for each one. You can say in one paragraph what the people said or what the person said, and try to use some quotes. Try to practice using your transition words as well, like first, second, next, another, however, nevertheless, and so on. And as I said, use some direct quotes. Try to use some examples. If you say I'm a very hardworking person, use an example of that. So maybe you're working for your church all day on a Saturday where you had a blood drive from 8 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. And then the next day, you were doing a Relay for Life activity. Using examples helps. It really puts points into perspective, okay? So you use 2 body paragraphs per person. At the very end, you need to compare and contrast your interviews and look at similarities and differences. Now, in this class, you're going to use the ABC format, the abstract, body, and the conclusion. For this first assignment, you are giving an overview of what the people said. You are covering them in the body on what they talked about, and then in the concluding paragraph, you're reviewing what they said and seeing how the interviews are similar and different. So you'll see, like in this class, that ABC format is consistent. That top-down format, which they mentioned in chapters 3 and 4, is that redundant, repetitive approach to technical communication. I wanted to share a really good example that I often refer to in class for students, and I'll mention it tonight while I'm thinking of it, okay? Yeah. If you have the book, and you can check this out on pages 244 and 245, there's a document there called Making Travel Arrangements. The first one is written in 4 paragraphs, and you see, hey, that's not bad. But if you look at it on page 245, notice what the difference is when they're using commands, that they're using numbered, they're using bullets, and then they use notes to stress key points, and they use in-text emphasis with bold and so on. It really does help, and it makes a big difference. So as you go through this class and the chapters that I have you read, make sure to at least look at the chapters, because you'll gain some great information, and you will find it very, very helpful. Um, for the email assignment that's due, you can send it as an email, or you can send it as a Word attachment, but I just want you to look at the websites and then respond to the points of criteria that I had you look at, like at format, emphasis, and so on. So that's what's due for this week. For next week, make sure to try to get the book, by next Wednesday, because you have to do two different discussion boards. Discussion board one is just tightening up sentences, and you have these series of clustered sentences, and you have to cut them down into one sentence of 20 words or less. And then for discussion board 1A, it has to do with telecommuting. And so that one is also in the book. So with discussion board 1, all you really need to do is do one posting with your sentences. With discussion board 1A, you're going to have to make an initial posting by Wednesday of next week, and then you'll have to do a follow-up posting by Friday, May 31st. So there you have that. For the other assignments that are coming up for Friday, June 7th, okay, there is a customer service evaluation, and I would like you to evaluate a place where you currently work or have worked, and you can evaluate the customer service as an employee, or you can look at it from an employee and as a customer, or you can do both. So you can do an employee, or you can look at it as a customer, or you can look at it as an employee and customer. But I would prefer you to write about a place, where you have worked, and write about the customer service that they provide. I've had students that have had great experience at their jobs, and I've had a couple students that worked at the Texas Roadhouse in Greensburg, and they said that they bend over backwards for customers, but they don't treat their employees as well. So they found that to be a less than enjoyable experience. I had a student that worked at a restaurant in Latrobe, and she said that the owner would tell customers who didn't like the service and didn't like the food, don't get out of here, don't come back again. So she would yell at the customers, and the student was a waitress at the restaurant, and one day there weren't any customers, and she told my student, she says, honey, go outside and wash the windows. And she says, I'm a server. She said, I'm a waitress, I don't do that. She said, I don't care. She says, if you don't go outside, I'm going to fire you. So she left that restaurant. She didn't care for it very much. But you just have to evaluate customer service using either 3 or 4 points of criteria, and there are guidelines, in assignments. So that one's pretty clear. There's a discussion board that's due by Friday, June 7th. You can read about that, at the discussion board. And then for the next week, there's a summary assignment due for Friday, June 14th. One thing that I did this summer that I changed is I made that due earlier in the semester. And one reason for that is it was last summer I assigned it too late, and there were other things that were due, and students were complaining. So this summer, what I've done is I've assigned it earlier. So it is, you have to find an article 3 to 5 pages related to your major or somewhat related. So if you were in like psychology, you could pick something from sociology even. But I mean, if you were in engineering, you could pick something related to engineering, or even like a field that's close to it. And then you have to do a longer summary, a shorter summary, and a visual organizer. So it's not really complicated. It just takes a little bit of time to do. But you do need to get to the point where you're able to produce or present the same information in 3 different ways. There was a student in class last year who was a petroleum engineering major, and he said, you have to do that pretty commonly, because if you're presenting to another engineer or a group of your colleagues, it's different than if you're presenting to a group of landowners, or whatnot. So you will have to adjust up or down, or present information in different ways. So I think you'll find that to be fairly useful, assignment overall. And then for that week, for the 14th as well, you have to do a proposal on your consumer report. I would encourage you actually to start on that a little bit earlier. If you could start on it maybe on like Monday the 10th and try it more than once. Sometimes people have to do it more than one time. I just want to make sure that you and I are in agreement on what you're doing for your consumer report, because I mentioned in this class before, like somebody last year did 3 vehicles, and they were like, one was an SUV, one was a crossover vehicle, and another one a small size, and one was a mid size. And I said, this is not right. And she didn't change it, and she ended up writing her consumer report using those 3. I said, you should have compared the CRV, the RAV4 by Toyota, and the Mazda, CX-5. Those are all competitors. You're looking at like a Jeep Sahara, which is a 4-door SUV that you can take into the woods. I mean, you can drive it anywhere. You could take it up the steepest hills. So her consumer report didn't turn out as effectively as it should have been, because her proposal just wasn't on target. So I just wanted to mention that to you so you're aware of that. For the week of the 21st, there's a discussion board posting that week. And then you have to evaluate good and bad written instructions. And as being a consumer, that sometimes you buy a product and you think these instructions are terrible, and sometimes they really are. I am not good at assembling much of anything, but I bought bookcases, I bought desks, I've bought all sorts of furniture from IKEA. And I've had it. I've moved from San Diego to, I lived in Calumet, I lived in Greensburg, and now I live in Mount Pleasant. And this furniture just is real strong. It's very easy to put together. The books, I mean, the bookshelves, you can literally put bricks in them, and they just hold up real well. I am very fond of instructions from Hewlett Packard. I have, in my office, I have an HP, Office Pro printer. It's great. And I mean, the instructions were this big piece of laminated paper. It was very easy to put together. Same thing with, I have a Dell Studio desktop. Same thing, a big sheet of paper, really easy to follow. Uh, a neighbor of mine, though, bought a Timex watch. It was an Ironman triathlon, and to set all the features was very complicated, and it was on this tissue paper written in 6 languages, and of course it was very confusing. And I've also had other instructions that a friend of mine bought a home gym from a company named Weirder, Weider. It was a guy that used to be a fitness guy in the, owned all these fitness places in California, but he produces gym equipment. And my friend and I tried to put it together, and the instructions were very, very, confusing. We had to ask a couple people to figure out which screws to put in and how to assemble it and so on. So it can be frustrating as a consumer. So you're looking at good written instructions, and you're looking at bad written instructions, and you're using these points of criteria. They're in the assignment that you have to do. So you'll find it to be pretty interesting. So I hope I haven't overwhelmed you here at the start of the semester, but I like to give you an idea as far as what's happening, and hopefully, it'll work out pretty well for you. The only last thing that I will tell you, in the first week, it takes me a little while to get all the discussion boards and all the assignments kind of lined up, but as we go through the course, it's okay. And with your assignments, you can just email it to me as an attachment, except for the discussion board. You can just post those as a discussion board. And I try to respond in a timely manner. If you don't hear from me in 4 or 5 days, that's very unusual. Send me an email and say, did you get my work, or what's happening, or whatever. I don't mind. And if I ever have an incorrect grade or something like that, let me know right away, and I will correct it. So I try to be helpful to you. And, if you ever get a chance to be helpful to me, if you're ever a doctor, or, or if you're ever a nurse in the emergency room and you see me there bleeding and waiting, you can get me in a little bit quicker. So hopefully you'll enjoy this class. Thanks.